Good afternoon, Mississippi Quilters. Terri Harbin here with the June edition of America's 250-Year Sew-Along. I promised you this month that we'd have easier blocks, and I kept my word. We have 4 blocks this month. The first one is Blazed Trails. The second one is Broken Dishes. The third one is Prairie Queen. And the fourth one is Summer Winds. So as I was sewing this up, I was looking at the history of everything. And I chose this one because, first of all, we're talking about everybody moving across America, and one of the things that they're going to do is they're going to blaze trails. And so I got to looking at it, and I'm like, okay, well, what does that encompass? So its meaning is to be a pioneer, lead the way, and do something that has never been done before to make it easier for the next person that comes along. And I thought, that's exactly what they were doing. And so then I got to looking at it, and I'm like, well, how did they do that? And so they did it a few ways. Most of the ways is they're coming across the more verdant portion of America was they would either cut tree branches, they would notch tree branches, or they would paint on the trees. Now, one of the things that I found when I was doing the research was this is like their little cheat sheet. And so everybody who was going across would understand what all those markings meant. So it was like you either go straight, this is the beginning of the trail, you're going to turn right here, you're going to turn left, this is the end of this particular trail, or the last one over here is the spur leading to a different trail, so like a fork in the road. So I thought this was pretty neat to see. And so that was one of the ways that they did it on trees. And one of the other ways that they did it was they would build rock stacks, and those are called rock cairns. And there were some pictures that I found on the internet where literally you would see a stack of rocks, and it looked just like a pyramid, and then further up there would be another one. And so that would lead you across. And so I thought that was pretty, it was a pretty nice visual that you could actually see. So they would have an idea of where they were going, especially when they were traveling through the dense forest. So that's block number 1. Block number 2 is Broken Dishes. Now, you know, they went across and covered wagons, and they took all of their belongings, and so you know that they took their dishes. And one of the things you got to think about is they're going over these blazed trails, so it's got to be rocky, it's got to be bumpy, and those dishes are going to get broken, they're going to get chipped. And so I was like, oh, okay. So when I started looking it up, this block has been around since the 1790s. So it's been around a long time. And again, I chose it because of what they were doing as far as going across the plains. Now, one of the things when I was doing the research was Broken Dishes at that point in time was considered both it was a tragedy and a puzzle, because here they are, they're going across and the dishes are getting broken, and it's their memories, and it was like, oh, that is just, it's horrific. So one of the things that when I was doing the research was when they got to certain places, they had to really think about the weight of their wagons. And so they had strict weight requirements because of the ox and the mules, because when they got to certain areas, it got quite intense as far as terrain. So they had to think long and hard, because you didn't want to dump an entire covered wagon. So it's like, okay, let's just dump something. And so Broken Dishes were one of those things. They actually had dump sites, like before the Great Basin or at the base of the Sierras, where people would just start dumping their stuff. And most of it was like dishes and pottery. And I thought, wow, that is just crazy to think that you're going, and you know it's going to get tough, because you got a pile of stuff over here that somebody else has dumped, and there's something over here that somebody else has dumped. You're like, okay, I guess I'm going to start dumping my stuff too. And I thought, wow, that is just insane. And they even have archaeologists in present day that are actually going to these dump sites, and they're digging up the British and American pottery to, number one, study the pottery. But one of the other things I thought was kind of neat was they are looking at the pottery and how it affected a pioneer's everyday life and their diet. That I'm not really sure about, but I thought, wow, they're really trying to figure this all out. So that was block number 2, Broken Dishes. Now block number 3 is Prairie Queen. Okay, so my videographer said, hey, this is wrong. I will fix it, but thank you very much. So this is the Prairie Queen block. And when I was looking it up, I was like, okay, wasn't really sure what to expect. So it kind of represents regions and cities, and they even had a stagecoach that was named the Prairie Queen. And it originated during the American pioneer era, and it reflects the romanticized history and rugged spirit of settlers as they expanded their reach into the West. So I thought, okay, that's kind of neat in itself. And but what kind of checked the box for me was the fact that it said it often described the brave women who survived the plains, which honestly, when it comes right down to it, crossing the plains of America had to be one of the hardest things anybody would ever do. And so I started doing a little research, and I came up with some names of women that had done some things, which I thought was kind of interesting. The first one that I came across her name was Elizabeth Blackwell. Elizabeth Blackwell lived from 1821 to 1910, and she was the first woman in America to become a doctor, an actual medical doctor with a degree. So, and she got that in 1849. So she was a doctor for almost 60 years, which is incredible if you think about it. And then the second one I found was Tabitha Brown. Tabitha Brown lived from 1780 until 1859. And she is considered the mother of Oregon. And so that means she went along the Northern Pass all the way across to Oregon. And she made that journey in a covered wagon in her mid-60s. Now, I'm 66. I can't even imagine doing that. So to have somebody go across and actually make it all the way and live a good life, it was just like, that was absolutely stunning to me. And one of the things that she is very well known for is she co-founded Pacific University in 1848. So again, strong women all the way across, brave women going across. Now we get to some of our little renegades. So the first one is Molly Brant. Molly Brant lived from 1736 to 1796. She was a Mohawk Indian clan leader. She was also a diplomat for the Indians to the American government. And best of all, she was a spy, which that was just like, that totally blew my mind. So anyway, so that was Molly Brant. The second notorious one was Belle Starr. Belle Starr lived from 1848 to 1889, and she was a notorious outlaw in the American West. She ran with gangs and horse thieves. So I'm like, oh, these are interesting women to say the least. And then you had Mad Ann Bailey. Mad Ann Bailey was a frontier scout and messenger. She avenged her husband's death, dressed in buckskin and petticoats, wielding a tomahawk. There we go. I'm like, yeah, pretty cool. And then I'm saying it wrong probably, but Jemina Boone. Yes, she is the daughter of Daniel Boone. She literally was kidnapped, and two other girls were with her when they were kidnapped, and she was so smart that she marked the trail so her dad could come and find her. So her dad and two other men followed her trail, and they found them. And then what's really interesting is those two other young ladies married two of their rescuers. So that was kind of neat. And then the last one, but not the least, which is somebody we all know about, and that is Sacagawea. Sacagawea was, we know her as the person who does the Lewis and Clark stuff, but there's a lot to Sacagawea that you guys might not know. Okay, she was originally a Lemhi Indian in Idaho, and she was kidnapped at the age of 12 by the Histata Indians, who were enemies of the Shoshone Indians. And then the Histata Indians sold her as a slave in 1803 to a French-Canadian fur trader named Toussaint Charbonneau. She became pregnant, and her son Jean-Baptiste Charbonneau was born in 1805. Well, when Lewis and Clark started going across Idaho, they met up with Charbonneau and Sacagawea, and those two people had extremely good language skills. So they were very instrumental in some of the movement across Idaho with the skills, because Sacagawea could speak Shoshone Indian, and she did a great job of making sure that they could pave the way across all the way to the west. So she ended up being part of their team. She was the only woman on their team, and she went west with them on the expedition, and she believed so much in what they were doing, and that when they were crossing a river, she literally defied death and went and rescued maps and equipment and what else was it? Maps, papers, and equipment. So she made sure that the stuff that they needed to finish their journey was going to be there. And so Lewis and Clark felt so strongly about that that they named a portion of the Missouri River after her, which I thought was kind of neat. Now, she passed away at the age of 25, but she left 2 children. They were both boys, and Clark of Lewis and Clark adopted those boys and raised those as his own, which I thought, that is just amazing. So that was, you know, a lot to it as far as a prairie block, a prairie queen block. Yes, I did read a lot into it, but you know what? There's a lot of great women out there that did some great things, so I wanted y'all to know. Our last block is summer winds. Now, summer winds, yes, we have winds that come across the plains, and so I was doing a little bit of reading on that. This block was really popular during the 1920s and 1930s, and it was part of a newspaper campaign that was called the Nancy Page. And it was then what the quilt blocks were known for was they were the Nancy Page Tuesday Quilt Club. So on Tuesdays, they would drop these quilt blocks, and this is one of the ones that you would have seen. So I looked at it a little bit differently because, again, you know, they're going across America and they are encountering things that they have never encountered before. Wind was one of the things that either defined their success or their hardship as they crossed the plains. And it could bring relief or it could bring destruction. Light breezes brought cool relief, hot winds, dried crops, and sparked terrifying prairie fires. In the mountainous areas, they often encountered hurricane-force canyon winds. So can you imagine trying to go through a canyon and having a hurricane wind just knock you on your butt? So that was, I was just trying to imagine it, you know, because I've been in places where I've had 55-mile-an-hour winds, and it's just like, it's really hard to try and move. So that had to be just immensely difficult. Now, the hot, dry winds were called loos. They could wither an entire crop of wheat or corn in a single day. And that would drastically reduce their food supplies over the winter. So wind was a very important concept when it came to pioneer life. Now, prairie fires, I was reading on that, and they could actually move faster than a running horse, which that is insane if you think about it. And so they would try, and again, they didn't have tractors and things like, you know, mechanical things. So they had to go through and literally plow fire breaks in their fields to try and keep their fields from catching fire. And the other thing that I thought was interesting, and they, you know, again, hot, cool, understanding all that. And then they had they had another one that they called miracle winds. And miracle winds were winds that brought unexpected salvation. And one of the most memorable miracle winds that they had was in the summer of 1854. They had a strong east wind blow a swarm of grasshoppers into the Great Salt Lake, saving all of their crops, which I thought, that is just, again, what? It's a miracle. So those were all very interesting things, and it was kind of neat to just read all the different pieces of history as far as me telling the story of how we moved all the way across America. So with that being said, let's talk about the blocks. They're all super easy this month, super easy. July, I've been working on one for July, and it is kicking my butt. But this is Blaze Trails, very easy to do, lots of 4 patches. This one, just nothing but half square triangles. This one is just a little bit different, half square triangles and 4 patches. There's a little bit here with the flying geese and the half square triangles, but it turns out really cute, really easy. So again, these are all of June's blocks. Continue to work. We are just, with June, we're halfway through. which is amazing. So July's coming. Go to our Facebook page and check it out. I don't think I'm going to add anything new to the Pinterest page because everything that we've been doing here is pretty much the same stuff that we've been doing before. And just keep at it, keep going. I saw some blocks the other day on the Facebook page. It was great to see somebody got all of their April blocks done. If you have trouble, reach out. I had a lady say, I'm not understanding this particular step. Can you help me? Sure enough, we got it all fixed. So she's well on her way to getting her blocks done. So with that being said, ladies, I've enjoyed this. I'm enjoying it. Sometimes it's work, but you do get a sense of accomplishment when you get it all done. And again, keep sewing. And oh, by the way, we're starting to ramp up for our summer gathering. That's going to be in August, and it's going to be down in Pearl, Mississippi at the Clyde Muse Center. So think about that. We've picked our teachers. We got a great slate of teachers, and you're going to start seeing more information on that. So just keep an eye on the Facebook page, and you'll start to see all the different things that we are trying to get accomplished for y'all. So y'all can come with us in August and have a great time. So until then, I'm going to be working on the instructions, and I'm going to be working on the July blocks, and I will see you next month. Y'all have a great day. Bye-bye.